Hello everyone, so this is going to be a video that I've tried to make a lot of times, but I think I finally figured out how I'm going to do it. So, I'm trying to make like an introduction video to my science fiction universe, but instead of trying to like introduce the universe, that's kind of what you're supposed to do with the books. I wanted to just tell the story of how I came up with the story. So a story about a story, if you will. And um so how does one start writing sci-fi or start writing from scratch? Well, I think it has to start with reading. Like, you're not going to be able to write a fantasy or sci-fi story without ever reading a sci-fi or fantasy book unless you're, you'd have to be just insane. Um So I used to read a lot of sci-fi. I don't read sci-fi anymore because I'm writing all the time. So sadly, I don't read as much. I still read a little bit, but I write a lot more. But it started with reading like I'm I'm in my 30s now, but in my teens and 20s I read a lot of sci-fi. So people ask like, well, where do you get these ideas, where do you get big ideas? And you have to be most people are inspired by things that they consume, and then they improve or iterate on those things or mix them together in a way that hasn't been done before. So for me, I always liked huge galaxy spanning science fiction, if not multiple galaxy spanning science fiction, but there's not a lot of that. But at least stuff that's multiple star systems. I didn't really prefer science fiction that doesn't at least have a story that spans multiple star systems. Even if the book story itself is only on one star system, um, the overall universe should be bigger than just that. So, for example, for me personally, the Expanse felt a little bit small because it's not interstellar, even though the solar system is larger than we'll ever need. So, um, so my favorite science fiction book that I ever read was House of Suns by Alastair Reynolds. And in science fiction, there's a big divide between whether or not you have faster than light travel. Really, what matters is faster than light, the travel speed of information. So, whether or not information can travel faster than light in your universe is a really big divider of how, like, quote unquote, hard your universe is, because faster than light travel is not possible according to, you know, our understanding of the universe. And so, House of Suns, the reason why I really liked House of Suns by Alastair Reynolds is because it's a story that spans the galaxy, but there's no faster than light. And I thought, wow, like, this is the closest thing I've ever read to something that could actually happen, because faster than light travel can't actually happen. And so it's like a lot of people have written about things that could never happen, and House of Suns has a lot of stuff in it that probably could never happen, but it's closer to being able to happen than than anything faster than light. So I thought that that was really amazing and immersive because it was like not just spitting in the face of physics. So that's the backdrop for kind of like who I was as a reader. And so, my favorite books are like Fire Upon the Deep, House of Suns, some of Peter F. Hamilton's stuff, but that's all faster than light. Um, but as far as I know, there's really not a whole lot of it. Like slower than light, grand scale space opera. Where not even information can travel faster than light. So, so I wanted to write science fiction that has a grand scale and has no faster than light travel. Those were like my two goals, or like in like my two yeah, I guess goals. Have it be grand scale and have it stick to physics. So I want the things that I write to at least be physically possible, not practical or sensible, but possible. Um, and the way that I decided to do that is the same way that House of Suns did, which is by taking advantage of time dilation. And the book Pushing Ice doesn't have faster than light travel at all either. And yet it spans massive time scales because of the because of uh, time dilation. So, okay, if you want science fiction that covers thousands of light years, but you can't go faster than light, you need to have somebody, some kind of entity able to actually observe things because humans are short lived. And so, you know, even in Alistair Reynolds' other No Faster Than Light, like Revelation Space, the characters can only witness so much because they're they don't live long enough. Like it takes so long for things on galactic timescales to happen. So long. So, what if? What if you have characters, not necessarily point of view characters, but you have at least some kind of living entity that's traveling very, 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 very fast. Like so obscenely fast that 1 year for them is 100,000 in the Milky Way. So I thought that if you could have an observer going fast enough so that every year for them is 100,000 in the Milky Way, then they could see things actually happen over the course of their lives. Because, think about it. If you live 100 years, you can witness a million years. So, or, um, 10 million years. So, yeah, showing my fatigue right there. I've been writing all night. But, so, uh, and, and so that was like the core of my, like, foundation where it all started. And so then I decided what kind of observer to have. And I decided the human observer is the best observer for a story because it's the most relatable. The other thing that I have in my universe is that AIs are not alive. So basically, human beings were never able to like create sentient life out of silicon. But the machines are so intelligent as to be basically indistinguishable. Like, for all intents and purposes, they can pass the Turing test, whereas where like they're indistinguishable from people, but they're not people, actually people. They're still just programs. So that was the other thing, is that I didn't want to have AI characters. I have AI characters, but not point of view characters, because the point of view is just that of a program. A very, very sophisticated one, but a program nonetheless. So the themes I wanted to reach was basically, what are the ultimate limits of technology and what is the ultimate limit of the human race too. And then another thing that really influences my sci-fi is the concept of seed shipping, or like seed ships. This is just the difference between, okay, I want to send life to that star over there. I'm going to put life on a spaceship and send the spaceship over, and then when the spaceship gets over there, it'll have people living on it that can populate the planet. Well, you either have to keep the people alive the whole time and have them have babies on the starship, which is a generation ship, or you keep them in stasis somehow, which is what a lot of sci-fi does, like cools people down or whatever. Or, or, in my opinion, the most realistic option with sufficiently advanced technology is to seed the destination planet with life using building blocks that the starship brings along with it. So the starship's dead. It doesn't have any living organisms on it, but it creates living organisms in a lab that it has, through an automated lab that it has on board, and then seeds the planet with that. And I think that that is probably the most, Im- you know, I'm not a physicist, but from all the sci-fi I've read, like, that seems to be the most realistic way of like how it could actually happen, because the other ways aren't possible. So a generation ship is possible, but I don't think it's as possible as growing an embryo. Uh, I think it's harder to build a generation ship than it is to figure out how to grow an embryo from scratch. So, so, so yeah, that was kind of like my. That's what started guiding the universe I was going to make. Was like, how do I have these themes and elements? So, the first thing I thought of for going really, really fast was a wheel. Just a just a hub, a spoke, and then a rim on the outside that's just spinning. And we're obviously talking about a giant wheel here. Okay, like a giant wheel. But it turns out that the centrifugal force created by such a thing is um is too extreme to like basically physics we'd have to discover some unknown element or something or alloy that has far greater strength. It's the same problem with a space elevator where we just don't our current understanding of the world doesn't allow for a material that's capable of those kinds of performing those kinds of tasks. So, I found out a way to go really, really, really fast with regular technology. And basically, I don't want to go too much into the tech in this video. I can do another video about the megastructure itself where these people go really, really fast. But for this video, all I want to say is that it makes heavy use of electromagnetic accelerators, um, which is the same thing that bullet trains use. So just think of a bullet train, but amped up and in space and going in a circle. If you can think of those three things, you'll have kind of the general gist of it, and then the rest of it was just hashing out a million little details about how this thing could actually work. Like, how does it get resupplied? How does it accelerate? How does it turn? How much energy does it need? Where does that energy come from? How does that energy get from here to there? But the point is that I had this concept, and it went from a wheel to a spaceship on a it's not a train, but it's a spaceship that follows a sort of track of electromagnetic accelerators. And yeah, so that mega structure, I was gonna call it the wheel. That was the first idea, but because of the wheel of time, I didn't want to do that, and also I just didn't really like it. Like, the wheel universe doesn't sound as that great. So I I looked up what the word wheel is in the Basque language because I had been in Basque country, and the Basque language is like completely. You should look up the Basque language, Basque. It's a language isolate, so we don't know where it came from, and it's unlike any other known language, and it's very, very, very old. And the word for wheel in Basque is Gurpila. Gurpila. That's the name of my universe. And that's the name of the megastructure that has the starship going very, very fast. And the people on the starship can actually observe, they can see millions and millions and millions of years happen in the galaxy. And so they can actually see what's going on over these massive timescales. But I didn't put the story there. So, my first book, the story takes place on a planet. One of the planets that had been seeded with life in the way that I had described, where it's an inorganic machine that builds organic life forms once it's at the destination. So after that, now we're at like 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, that's what I had. Over the past 3 years, I've been working in, you know, where the planet came from, where the megastructure came from, who made all these things. You have to have conflict. That's the other problem with slower than light, is that conflict becomes very difficult because it just takes too long. So it's like, I declare war, and then 200,000 years later something happens because they're on another star system, and so it takes 10,000 years for anything to happen at all. Um, it's not as exciting. That's why it's not very common. But I did my best with it. And I basically, what I did was, there's a whole there's a whole mess of a situation happening in the galaxy. But I zoom in on this one planet that's kind of at the crux of it all. And this one planet kind of serves as like a microcosm for what's going on. Like, by understanding what's going on this one planet, you can understand the story of what's happened in the galaxy. My universe starts, the story kind of, it starts after the Earth has been swallowed by the sun. So there's no more Earth anymore. And humans never got off. Oh, how could I forget? No aliens. Personally, I believe that we are the only spacefaring living species presently in the Milky Way. Now, I know that's a big claim, but it's also a big claim to say otherwise. So, whatever. That's how I've always felt. There could be intelligent life in the observable universe, but in the Milky Way, I think we are either the only or close to the only. So, in my sci fi universe, humans, that's it. Those are the only ones that ever go to the stars and build machines that do all these things. It's just humans. Now, humans evolve and turn into other things. So humans turn into aliens, but they're not totally aliens because they still come from the human base. You know, it's not the same as like uh, a total alien. So yeah, those are like the main themes. But I can still have aliens because I just say that it evolved from a human or was designed by a human, because humans evolved technology that allowed them to like build life forms. So you can like create bacteria and create viruses and create um, mammals and insects and whatever you want. You can make these things and breed them. And so, you know, I can have all kinds of creatures still. It's just that they didn't evolve independently. They're, everything's artificial. Another theme that I really wanted to capture is the vastness of space. A lot of sci-fi makes space feel small, and that can grind my gears, because the thing that I love most about astronomy and space, and the reason why I've always been into it, is part of it is just how small it makes you feel, um, and how small it makes the world feel, because like Earth feel, because like I don't know how else to say it other than that the universe is huge. Like, it's absolute, like, the amount of distance between stars, between galaxies, between clusters of galaxies. It's it's something that, like, it's something that we kind of hold at a distance, but you don't realize like we're just floating in that void on a rock. So we're in it all the time. Like as I'm saying this, we're sitting in that vastness. We're in it. And yet we kind of just hold it off as like, oh yeah, space is really big and then the earth is here. And it's like no, the earth is just a speck floating in that vastness. And man, I wish more sci-fi could kind of capture that, cuz when you just build a wormhole to another world, it's like that other world is really 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 far away. And I want my sci-fi to really emphasize that. So to talk to each other might take 50,000 years. Okay. I have to wait 50,000 years. That's just the way it is. So they know that when they send the signal, that when they get the signal back from whoever they're talking to 50,000 years later, that whatever they get back, who knows what the world's going to look like when they get the signal back. And so societies that are in contact with each other, if they even bother, there's an interest in preservation over long periods of time, preserving institutions and societies because things take a long time to develop. And so you can't have short-lived empires and stuff like that. So my sci-fi has a lot of themes of like insular, secretive cults and groups that have information that others do not have, and things like that. So, so yeah, I'm coming up on 30 minutes. Yeah, I wanted to just kind of tell the story of how I came up with my first story. Um, and then as far as writing goes, man, it took me 6 months to finish the first draft. And I've written two more drafts since then. And each one has taken me longer because I'm being more careful and getting more into it. And I'm really glad that I didn't publish the first version of my book. Um, my first book is called The Last Seed. It's like 75 to 80,000 words long, but the final version might end up being around 85. I'm really trying to trim it down without screwing up the pacing, but anyway, the point is now, 3 years after conceiving of this, here I am. I mean, I have a book, I have an edited manuscript that would have been ready to publish, but I'm really glad I didn't publish it because I've made major changes to the universe since then. So I'm actually waiting until I finish the second book to publish the first book so that there's continuity, so that because there's been a lot of times where I'm writing the second book where I'm like, oh man, I need to change this. Thank God I didn't publish the first book, otherwise this would be set in stone and there's nothing I could do. So I'm kind of, and it's been a really big help to kind of get the second book fleshed out. To now I have a better understanding of what the first book has to do. You know, so yeah. So it's been good. But it still is 3 years, nothing published. So that's not good, but it's getting better and better because I've been working and working at it. So the delay leads to higher quality, but you can't just delay until you're dead. So it's like I can see like the artist's dilemma of like how much do you hone something before you release it, because you know that if you if you start over and do it again, it'll probably be better because you've gotten better. But you can't just only ever do that. At some point, you have to just say, okay, here it is. So, so yeah, cool. That'll be the first video. All right, cool. Thanks.